Hi there, I'm Ray Mercer, yeah. That old cripple they laughed at last week. 5 so-called heroes from Alpha Unit thought they'd found a fake veteran to bully. They yanked my jacket, called me Dragon 007, like it was some damn joke, and told the whole bar I'd never seen real combat. One of them even whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Man, look at him. If that's a soldier, I'm the president." And the room went silent. Just me, their laughter, and the sound of my coffee cup shaking in my hand. They thought I'd forgotten what fire feels like. They were wrong. Because that night, in that same bar, everything changed. Ellipsis. There's a booth in the far back corner of the VFW hall in Marietta, Georgia. It's dimmer than the rest of the room, tucked just far enough from the buffet line and the dartboard that no one ever sits there unless they mean to be alone. That's my booth. I don't take up much space these days. One leg stiffens in the morning and stays that way most of the day. And my hearing's been fading like a bad radio signal for a while now. So I sit, sip my coffee real slow, and watch the world move around me like I'm in a still frame. The room was buzzing more than usual that day, Veterans Appreciation Night. Local news sent a cameraman, and someone hung a banner that read, "We remember all who served," above the bingo board. I figured I'd put in an appearance, shake a few hands, and disappear by dessert. Didn't work out that way. That's when they walked in, 6 of them. Young, loud, and lean. You could smell the gym sweat and high-calorie protein drinks on them. Special operations, no doubt. One of them wore a fitted polo that barely hid the bulge of his shoulder holster. Even though this was off-duty. Alpha Unit, judging by their gait, coordinated. Casual, but scanning the room like it owed them something. He was the loudest one. Brown hair slicked back, jaw set like he was about to bite into a fight, Travis Dent. The kind of soldier who didn't know the difference between earned pride and borrowed bravado. I didn't look up when they passed my table. I never do. Just me and my black coffee in a chipped ceramic mug. The room softened when I stared into that surface. Let it go quiet. Let it fade. Then I heard it. "Yo, is that him?" Someone whispered behind me. "I think that's him. They call him Dragon something." Travis laughed. "Dragon 007? His voice cut the air like a steak knife scraping china. "Man, what is this? A Bond movie? You serious?" The room didn't laugh with him. Not even a chuckle. You could hear a fork clink on a plate across the room. He kept talking, but I didn't hear it. My hearing aid buzzed low in my ear like a warning. But I didn't turn it up. I just sat there, watching the steam fade off my coffee, waiting for the weight in the air to settle. I've been called a lot of things in my life: soldier, ghost, legend, traitor, hero. But Dragon 007 wasn't something I gave myself. That name came from a night I don't talk about. A night buried in a place the government denies exists. A name earned in fire, sealed in blood, and carried alone ever since. Someone shifted across from me. "Travis, I think." I didn't look. "You guys hear that?" he said louder. Whole place just went dead silent. Over a nickname. He leaned in a little. "Dude, if that's really his call sign, that's the most try-hard name I've ever heard." Still, no one laughed. A waitress backed away from our table like she'd just touched a wire. I finally raised my eyes. Not to him, just to the room. People were staring at me, at him, at each other. No one moved. Even the jukebox skipped a beat. My hand trembled slightly as I brought the mug to my lips. Echo. That was the first sign. Echoes don't come from noise, they come from silence that went too deep, too long, and found something buried. I thought maybe if I didn't respond, this would blow over. Maybe this one time, silence would be enough to let the past stay put. But Travis Dent had the kind of ego that doesn't let go of a silence like that. Not when it's heavy. Not when it drips with history he doesn't understand. And as I put the mug down, my hand steadier than before, I knew this was going to get worse before it got better. Ellipsis. "If you're not gonna defend the name, old man," Travis said, smirking, "I guess I'll help you tear it down." I didn't respond, just looked at him for the first time. Not up, not down, just straight. That kind of look doesn't carry anger. It carries history. He didn't flinch. Not yet. He strutted off like he'd won something. Back to his table of laughing hyenas. But their laughter was off-key. Nervous. Shaky. Like maybe they'd seen something on my face they couldn't place. Elaine slid into the booth across from me not long after. No warning. No preamble. Just sat down and looked me over. "You all right?" she asked. "I'm fine." "You didn't look fine." "I'm used to worse." She looked around the room. Then back at me. "He doesn't know what he's messing with." I took another sip of coffee. The mug was chipped near the rim, same spot for years. Funny how your hand always knows where not to touch. Elaine lowered her voice. "They call you that still?" I nodded once. "Your name used to make men stop talking. Now it makes kids laugh." She said it not with judgment, but with a sadness so heavy it curled around her words. "I'm not here for names," I muttered. She didn't push, just patted my hand and slid back out of the booth. Always had good timing, that one. Not long after, Travis returned, alone this time, less grin, more curiosity. He dropped into the seat Elaine had just left, all elbows and arrogance. "So," he said, folding his arms, "Dragon 007, that's not a self-given name, is it?" I didn't say anything. "Come on, sir, don't go quiet on me now. We're both soldiers, aren't we? You served, I serve. Brotherhood, right?" His smile was tight, like he wasn't convinced of what he was saying, but wanted to believe it sounded respectful. "You know what bugs me?" he went on. "People tossing around names, patches, legends, wearing jackets they didn't earn. My team, my brothers, we put our lives into those symbols. So when someone comes in here wearing mystery like it's a badge of honor, it gets under my skin." I reached for the coffee again. "Not in a hurry." Travis leaned in. "I just want to know who you are." "Really?" That's when Elaine's voice came from behind him. Calm but firm. "You want to know who he is? Ask your CO. Ask the men old enough to remember DFX missions. But you better ask nice." Travis turned, caught off guard. Elaine stepped beside the booth. Her eyes locked on him. "He doesn't owe you an explanation. Least of all you." She turned to me then. Softened. "You need anything?" I shook my head. She gave me a look I've seen before, half worry, half please don't let this turn ugly. Then she walked away. Travis stood up slowly. Not defeated, not convinced, just thinking. "We'll talk again," he said. "You and me." I didn't answer. He left. The rest of the night blurred. Conversations moved on, but eyes kept glancing back my way. That name, Dragon 007, hung in the air like smoke from a fire no one remembered starting. I left before dessert, same as always, just me and the low rumble of a VFW hall trying to be normal again. Outside, the Georgia night wrapped around my jacket like a memory. Some names you bury, others get dug up for you. Ellipsis. He touched the patch on my jacket the next time. That's when the coffee hit the floor, and the air changed for good. I had just poured a fresh cup. Same booth, same chipped mug. It was quieter that afternoon. Most folks were still out back where they were grilling ribs. I stayed inside. Never liked the smell of charcoal and loud laughter mixed together. Travis walked in like he'd rehearsed it. No buddies this time, no smirking either. Just a cold kind of interest. Like he'd decided I was a puzzle and today he was going to solve it. He sat down across from me without asking. "You ever think about how many lives were lost for something as small as a patch?" he said. Not looking at me, eyes fixed on the spot above my heart. The old cloth, frayed, darkened, barely clinging to the fabric of my jacket, hadn't meant to catch anyone's attention. But it always did, eventually. He reached across the table. Slow, but without hesitation. His fingers brushed the edge of it before I swatted his hand away. The mug slipped from my grip and shattered against the floor. Hot coffee splashed across my boot and seeped into the cracks of the tile. The sound made heads turn. All around the room, chairs scraped and conversations paused. Travis froze, not because of what he'd done, but because of the way I was looking at him. There are things you bury deep, places in your memory you board up and mark with "do not enter." Sometimes, all it takes is a single action to rip those boards off like wet paper. My vision blurred, but it wasn't age or rage. For a second, I wasn't in the VFW hall anymore. I was back on the side of a mountain in Kandahar, under a blacked-out sky. Blood in my boots. A boy next to me coughing up pieces of a lung. The only thing holding us together was that same patch. Brighter then, still sewn tight, still meaning something no one on this side of the world could ever fully grasp. Someone coughed nearby and dragged me back. Elaine was there before I could move. She knelt and started cleaning up the mug shards with a bar towel. Her face stiff. "Don't," I said quietly. She kept going. I said don't. I reached down and picked up the biggest piece myself. My hand was shaking again. Across from me, Travis stood. "I didn't mean to," he started. But the words trailed off. Elaine stood too, towel in hand, and stared him down. "You didn't not mean to. Either." Other folks were standing now. Watching, whispering. A man at the bar leaned over to someone and said, "That kid doesn't know who he's dealing with." Travis heard it. His jaw tensed. He looked at me again. But this time the confidence had a crack running down the middle. He turned and walked out without another word. Elaine stayed a second longer. "He's not the only one asking questions," she said. "You might not want to tell your story. But people are starting to remember it for you." I didn't answer. I just looked at the piece of ceramic in my hand and thought how funny it was that it broke cleaner than I ever had. That night, I sat on my porch with a fresh cup in a different mug. George's heat was clinging to the railing like it didn't want to leave. Inside, I could still hear Travis's voice, asking about the patch, about what it meant. The coffee was still bitter, still black, but that night, it tasted more like something I couldn't spit out. Ellipsis. Next day, his curiosity got louder than his manners. And that's when things started slipping out, things I thought were buried deeper than memory. I showed up early that morning. Earlier than usual. Habit, I guess. The kind of habit that sticks to you after years of waking up in places where sleeping in meant not waking up at all. The VFW was quiet. A few regulars played cards by the window. A Vietnam vet named Curtis sat by the door, sipping his sweet tea like it was a sacred ritual. I took my booth again. Nothing in my hands but silence. Travis walked in a little after 9. This time, he had a phone in one hand and frustration written all over his face. He looked like a man who'd pulled every string and still come up empty. He stood near my table, but didn't sit. "I ran your name," he said. "Franklin Reeve. There's nothing. You were never enlisted, never deployed, never anything." I looked up. "Then I guess I've been wasting a lot of years at these meetings." He didn't laugh. "I had someone check military databases, classified and open. No assignments, no awards, no record." I didn't blink. "Some things don't come with paperwork." "That's not how it works," he snapped. "Everything leaves a footprint, unless someone went out of their way to erase it." I sipped my coffee. Still too hot, still worth the burn. Behind him, Curtis turned toward us. He didn't speak, just looked at me, then at Travis, then back to his tea. "I want to know what you're hiding," Travis said. His voice dropped just a notch. "People here respect you, but no one can say why." Before I could respond, a voice cut in from the side. "Because not everything worth knowing can be Googled, son." Travis turned. So did I. It was Harlan Knox. Older than me by maybe a few years. Hair gone silver, but back still straight. Civilian clothes. But that presence, you don't lose that kind of posture unless the ground takes it from you. Harlan pulled out a folded photo from his coat pocket and placed it on my table. Face down. "You want to know who he is?" he said to Travis. "Flip it." Travis didn't move. So I did. The photo was black and white, blurred at the edges like time had tried to erase it. 6 men, armed and bloodied, standing beneath a spray-painted sign that read, "Dragon Team, DFX 13. Front and center was a younger version of me. Eyes like ash, jaw tight. "Where was this?" Travis asked. "Kandahar," Harlan said. "Winter of '04. 26 hours of silence. Radio blackout. 3 extraction points failed. Reeve here carried 2 men 5 miles through broken terrain. 1 dead, 1 screaming. No medevac, no backup." Travis stared at the photo like it might move if he looked hard enough. Harlan went on. "The mission didn't exist. Not officially. Not even on redacted files. You think that patch on his jacket is some cheap tribute? It's not. That's the only part of that op that ever came back." Silence. Curtis whispered, "Damn." Travis stepped back slightly. Like the floor wasn't as steady as it had been. But pride's a stubborn thing. He tried one more push. If that's all true, why doesn't anyone say his name out loud? Why don't more people know? Harlan looked straight at him. Because he lived, and the ones who didn't, they were the only ones who could have told the whole story. Travis said nothing, then turned and left, slower than usual. The photo stayed on my table. My eyes rested on the younger me, the me who hadn't yet known what silence could do to a man. That me was long gone, but the patch had stayed. Elaine came by later, refilled my coffee without a word. As she placed the mug down, she glanced at the photo, then at me. You gonna let him keep digging? I don't have to, I said. Because once something cracks, it doesn't stop on its own. Ellipsis. That night, someone else came forward, not to ask, but to remember. It was just past 8 when I returned to the hall. I hadn't planned on going back so soon. But something about Travis's silence after Harlan spoke, it lingered. Like a storm had passed. But the sky wasn't done shifting. The lights inside were dimmed low. As usual, Elaine was behind the bar, polishing glasses that didn't need polishing. 2 retired Marines argued over a game on the muted TV. Same faces, same noise, but I felt it all press closer now. I sat at my usual booth. No coffee this time, just water. I needed clarity, not comfort. 10 minutes passed before he walked in. He wore a battered navy ball cap pulled low and a jacket that still had the faint outline of a unit patch long since peeled off. I hadn't seen him in years, but I knew the walk. Broad shoulders, stiff left leg, and that hesitation in his first step, like he was testing the world to see if it still held. "Reeve," he said, stopping beside my booth. His voice was gravel and rust. I looked up. "Charlie Red?" "Yeah." He took off the cap and slid into the seat across from me without asking. Heard there was a stir. More than usual. He smirked. "You always had a way of attracting storms." I leaned back. "Didn't think you'd come back here." He looked around. "Place hasn't changed much." "Neither have you." He raised an eyebrow. "Neither have you." Dragon. That word hit different coming from him. Not sharp, not mocking, just truth. We sat quiet a moment. Old soldiers don't need small talk. Our silence was full. Then Charlie pulled out something from his jacket, a metal tag. Scuffed and bent, he slid it across the table. I stared at it. "Found this in a box last week," he said. "Had your name on it. Figured you might want it back." It was the COM override chip from DFX-13, the one I thought I'd lost in the cave-out. I picked it up, held it like it might vanish again. "Why now?" I asked. Charlie shrugged. "You ever try forgetting something and it just won't let you?" I nodded. He leaned forward. "That kid, Travis, he's a bullet with no target. You let him keep poking. He's gonna hit something explosive." I tried silence. I said, "Yeah? How's that working for you?" I didn't answer. Charlie tapped the table with one finger. "You ever think maybe silence is part of the problem? They don't know what came before them. They think they're first. They think we're ghosts, or fakes." Elaine passed by and dropped off 2 cups of coffee without a word. "Just like old times." Charlie took a sip and winced. "Still tastes like regret." I laughed. "First time in days." He let the moment sit. Then went quiet again. "I still see it. You know, that night. The firelight bouncing off your face. The screaming. The sound of breathing through blood. I remember how you dragged me up that ridge after I passed out." He looked down at the table. "No one ever told that story." "Not really." "They weren't supposed to," I said. "Maybe not then," he replied, "but maybe now." I held the chip tight in my fist. It wasn't much, just circuitry and solder. But to me, it was weight. Across the room, the young guys were playing pool again. Travis wasn't with them, not tonight. Charlie stood, placing the cap back on. "I'll be around for a few days. If you want to talk. Or if you don't." I nodded. As he walked out, I noticed something. The way the other vets looked at him. Like they remembered too. Like the silence around me wasn't mine alone anymore. Elaine came over as I turned the chip over in my hand. "You okay?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "But maybe soon." Ellipsis. I thought that would be the end of it. Then 2 days later, a black SUV pulled up outside the hall. And everything changed. It was a Wednesday. Slow and hot. I was at the VFW early, fixing a loose hinge on the side entrance. No one had asked me to. It just bothered me, the way it creaked. The way it didn't close clean. Some habits stick long after they're useful. The SUV was one of those federal kinds, no plates. No markings. Windows dark enough to hide a whole war behind them. It didn't belong. It parked across the street and didn't move. No one got out. No engine hum. Just presence. Elaine came out, drying her hands on a rag. You expecting someone? No. She followed my gaze. That's not local. No. We watched it a minute longer. The sun hit the windshield just right. And for a split second, I thought I saw a figure behind the glass, broad-shouldered. Head tilted slightly, watching. Elaine crossed her arms. Feds? Not regular ones. She paused. You think this is about the patch? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. But in my gut, I felt it, that old burn in the ribs. The one that flared up whenever something from the past started crawling forward. Charlie showed up 20 minutes later. The moment he saw the SUV, he stopped walking, his jaw tightened. Well, hell, he muttered. You know them? I asked. He shook his head. No, but I know the type. Before I could respond, the door of the SUV opened. Out stepped a man in a slate gray suit. No tie, sunglasses too clean for this town. He walked across the street with the kind of calm you don't practice. It's trained. He stopped just short of the sidewalk. Looked straight at me. Mr. Reeve? I nodded. My name is Nolan. May I speak with you privately? Charlie stepped forward. He's not alone. I understand, Nolan said, but this is about something delicate. Elaine opened the hall door wider. You can talk inside, or not at all. Nolan hesitated, then gave a tight nod. Very well. Inside, the hall was nearly empty, just the quiet hum of the drink fridge and an old fan rattling near the window. We sat at a booth near the back. Nolan didn't order anything. He pulled out a folder, old, thick, worn like it had seen desert, saltwater, and time. Across the front, DFX 13. Restricted, eyes only. My stomach sank. This was supposed to remain sealed, he said, but certain recent activities have raised flags. What activities? Your name, your patch, the incident at this hall with the younger serviceman. It pinged a dormant watch list. Charlie scoffed. You people still watching us? After all these years? Nolan didn't flinch. It's not you we're watching. It's what might follow. He opened the folder slightly. Redacted pages. Blurred photos. One of them showed my younger self, half covered in dust and blood, standing beside wreckage. Dragon 007, Nolan said. Unofficial, but real. You and 3 others. Hunter-killer unit. Black clearance. Operated outside theater boundaries. You disappeared off radar in 04. Presumed dead. I wasn't, I said flatly. No, he nodded. You weren't. And now that name's circulating again. Elaine leaned in. What do you want? Nolan looked at me. We want to make sure the past stays where it belongs. I stared at him. You worried about exposure? We're worried about misunderstanding, he said. About young men like Travis poking at ghosts and waking something they're not equipped to handle. Charlie laughed under his breath. You mean like us? Nolan didn't smile. I'm here to offer a suggestion. He continued. Lay low. Keep the jacket in the closet. Keep the patch off the table. And in return, we stop looking. I leaned forward. I didn't ask you to start. No, he said, but someone did. He stood. Thank you for your time. Before I could stop him, who asked? Nolan paused. Then, with a glance back, he said, one of your own. Someone from Dragon. Then he left. My heart was a drumbeat in my ears. Because there weren't many of us left. And the ones who were, weren't supposed to remember. Ellipsis. That night, I dug out the old file. The one I swore I'd never open again. The first page wasn't blank anymore. I kept it in the crawl space under the floorboards, wrapped in a tarp. Sealed in plastic, behind an old ammo box nobody but me would touch. I hadn't looked at it in over a decade. Not because I forgot what was inside. Because I remembered too well. When I unwrapped it, the scent of dust and motor oil hit me like an old friend with bad news. I brought it into the kitchen, sat at the table, and laid it flat. The cover had no label, no name, no rank, just black tape over the spine. I opened it. First page, once blank, now held a photograph, paper clipped to a typed note. The photo was fresh, color, high res. It showed Travis standing outside the VFW hall 2 nights ago, looking up at the American flag near the porch. No timestamp, but I didn't need one. Someone had eyes on us. The note was printed in bold courier type. He's not asking for answers. He's being pointed toward them. Underneath that, handwritten in slanted ink, one of us is still active, and not on our side. My chest tightened. I flipped the next few pages, maps, debriefs, mission logs, all things I remembered seeing once through bloodshot eyes and adrenaline crashes. But now, they felt different, more precise. Someone had cleaned them up, digitized them, categorized them. Then I hit the page that stopped me cold. A personnel manifest. Project DFX-13, Dragon Unit. 4 names. Reeve, Franklin, Mendoza, Elias, Taggart, Ray, Voss, Lyle. 3 of those men were dead, or so I'd been told. Taggart I watched fall in that mountainside ambush. Mendoza went silent after the second Cairo op, presumed compromised. Voss was the one no one ever confirmed. His file ended in 2006. Vanished. Now, next to his name, active, confirmed. I pushed the file away. The air in the room got smaller. If Voss was alive, and if he'd flipped, we weren't just talking about ghosts anymore. We were talking about someone who still had the training, the clearance, and the old grudges. And if he was pointing Travis toward me, there was a reason, a trap, or worse, a message. I heard a knock. It was soft, but not uncertain. I stood and went to the door. Slow, checked the peephole. It was Charlie. When I opened it, he was holding a 6-pack and a face that didn't match the casual gesture. "I figured you might need company," he said. I stepped aside. "You figured right." We sat in silence for a minute before I slid the folder over. He opened it. His hand paused at the photo of Travis. "You think it's Voss?" he asked. I nodded. Only one who'd play this long game. And only one who'd know how to disappear while still watching. Charlie let out a breath that sounded older than both of us. "I thought we left this behind." "We did," I said, "but someone else brought it back." He looked me in the eye. "So what do we do now?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at the patch still sewn into my jacket, folded over the kitchen chair. It wasn't just memory anymore. It was a marker, and someone had circled it on the map. Ellipsis. The next morning, Travis was gone, and in his place, a note pinned to the door with a combat knife. "Dragon, you were never the only one." I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't just the words. It was the blade, a specific kind, tactical, black matte, serrated edge worn by time and use. Not military issue, custom, identical to the one Voss carried. Charlie stood beside me, jaw clenched. He took the kid. "I don't think Travis went unwillingly," I said. Charlie looked at me, confused. "He's been chasing shadows for weeks," I explained. Someone finally offered him a torch. I pulled the knife out of the doorframe. The wood around it had splintered like bone. I held the note up to the morning light. No prints. No signature. Just the message in clean block letters. Voss's style. All clarity. No emotion. We went inside. I spread the file back across the table. Everything we thought was buried was now active. Rewritten. And someone was writing the ending without us. Charlie sat down, cracking his knuckles the way he always did before a mission. "We going after him? You think we have a choice?" He shook his head. "I just wanted to hear you say it." I dialed Maria at the VFW. She answered on the second ring. "Have you seen Travis this morning?" I asked. "No, but someone was watching the building last night. Parked across the street for hours. Then they left around 4. I thanked her and hung up. Charlie was already packing gear from his truck, a duffel full of nothing labeled but everything useful. I grabbed my own kit. Dusty, untouched, but not forgotten. My sidearm felt heavier than I remembered. Or maybe I was just older. We tracked his car first. It had been abandoned behind the old train depot. The keys were still in the ignition. That meant he wasn't planning to come back. Not right away. Inside the glove box, Charlie found a folded napkin from a gas station 20 miles east. On the back, coordinates. Voss's breadcrumb. He wants us to follow. He wants to finish something, I said. We drove in silence for nearly an hour. The sky turned overcast, and the road narrowed into dirt. The trees thickened, the kind of woods you don't walk without a reason. When we reached the clearing, the sun broke through for a moment, long enough to spotlight what stood at its center. An old trailer. Aluminum, faded, dented, but alive. Smoke rose from a chimney pipe rigged to the roof. There were no signs of a trap. That was the trap. We approached slow, each step calculated. At the door, a second note was taped above the handle. Only one of you goes in. Charlie looked at me. That you or me? It's me, I said. He didn't argue, just pulled out his watch and said, You got 15, then I'm coming in. Inside, the trailer was warm, lived in, smelled like old gun oil and pine. On the far side, a table. On the table, a laptop. And beside it, Travis. He wasn't tied up. He wasn't even scared. He looked at me like I was the one who needed answers. You knew, didn't you? He asked quietly. That something like this was still out there. I nodded. I didn't think it'd come back for me. He gestured toward the laptop. He left that for you. Said if anyone could understand the message, it was the man who survived it. I sat down, opened the lid. The screen flickered, then played a video. Grainy, time-stamped, a mission debrief, 2004. It showed Voss, blood on his uniform, staring dead into the camera. If you're watching this, he said, then I didn't make it. Or I did, but not in one piece. He looked away, then back. They said we were expendable. We weren't. We were built, sharpened, turned loose. And now, one by one, we disappear, and no one notices. Dragon, if you're out there, you were always the one they feared most. The video cut. Just static. Travis was watching me now. Really watching. He thinks you can fix this. He said. No, I replied. He thinks I can finish it. Ellipsis. That night, the third note arrived. No words this time, just a location. And a symbol we both recognized, the dragon's eye. The hunt had truly begun. We burned the coordinates into our minds. The spot wasn't random, it was sacred ground. A ridge called Echo Point. Deep in the Appalachians, where our unit ran black trials before real deployments. No roads, no signals, just stone, trees, and the ghosts of training long gone. Charlie and I geared up before sunrise. Travis insisted on coming. I told him no. He told me it wasn't my call anymore. I didn't like it, but I saw it in his eyes. The fire had changed. It was no longer reckless. It was forge. We reached the ridge by late afternoon, hiking the last 2 miles on foot, breathing hard but steady. Each step brought back the old rhythm, the feel of silence before impact. There were no ambushes, no signs of struggle. Just a single campfire burning low and a man standing beside it. Voss. His beard was full now. Gray streaks in black. He wore civilian clothes, but the way he stood, feet rooted, shoulders set, screamed operator. He didn't flinch when we entered the clearing. Took you long enough, he said, voice dry as the dirt beneath our boots. I stepped forward. You've been busy. He nodded toward Travis. You brought the boy. I didn't bring him, I said. He chose. Voss studied him a second, then gave a low grunt. Approval, maybe. Charlie circled the edge, slow, always checking lines of retreat. Old habits. You left that message, I said. You fed him stories. Why? Voss looked me dead in the eye. Because they buried us, and because you let them. I felt the weight of that. You disappeared, I said. You went dark. They gave me a medal in a windowless room. Voss snapped. Then they erased everything. Name, mission, purpose. I stopped being a man. I became a loose end. He stepped closer. But you wore the patch. You walked into public halls with it on your back. You told them we mattered. I didn't tell anyone, I said. I just refused to forget. And now they watch you. Voss said. Because memory is dangerous. Especially ours. Travis broke the tension. Why me? he asked. Voss turned to him. Because you asked questions. Because you looked when everyone else turned away. You're not a soldier yet. You're a witness. I saw what Voss wanted. Not revenge. Not redemption. A record. He reached into his pack and pulled out a hard drive. This is everything. Operations. Names. Maps. Kills. What we were told. What we weren't. He held it out to me. You're the last one who can make them see. I didn't take it. What's the catch? I asked. No catch, he said, but once you know, there's no going back. You carry it, or you bury it, but no more silence. Charlie cleared his throat. And what about you? Voss looked at the fire. I don't come back from this. I don't want to. The moment was thick. The wind moved like breath around us. Finally, I reached out, took the drive. It's not just about us anymore, I said. It's about making sure the next ones know where the fire started, and why it burned. Voss nodded once. Then he stepped back into the shadows of the ridge. We never saw him again. Later that week, I returned to the VFW. Sat at my usual booth. Jacket folded next to me. No patch showing, just fabric. Elaine brought my coffee. Travis sat across from me. A notebook in his hand. You ready? He asked. I looked at him. I'm ready, I said. But the truth is, no one ever really is.